Hey guys, welcome to Combo Courses, and I'm trying to do these more regularly since I'm starting to slow down a little bit. The work that I do, well, it hasn't slowed down, but I'm managing my time better. Let's put it that way. All right, so what I wanted to talk about is a couple of questions that people ask me, as you can see over there, and that's what we're going to talk about in this particular podcast. And the first one really had me laughing. It was came from Millie Tant, who said, can you do therapy sessions for ISOs? Oh, and this one really made me laugh, Millie. Like, whoever you are, had a good laugh on that one. Yeah, because cybersecurity can really get stressful at times. A lot of our job is dealing with people, dealing with hard-headed clients, dealing with difficult situations that clients have, and people get very emotional about what we're doing. They realize it's important, and there's a lot of pressure in the cybersecurity in general. If you're a cybersecurity consultant, if you're an information system security officer, whatever the case, and you're in the middle of this hot seat where you're handling essentially people's data, right? And it's very important, especially if they just got hacked or something. I mean, it's just very stressful. So one thing that I do to just remain calm is realize that I'm just a messenger. Like, that's it. I am merely a messenger of facts. I try not to put my emotions in it. And there's a tendency as humans to try to put our own feelings in it. But you just have to report the facts. And psychologically, when I think of it that way, I realize sometimes the facts are not going to be something that my client or whoever wants to hear. But if I don't tell them, it's going to be worse for them. So I just say, listen, in my mind, I'm just like, I'm just a messenger. I'm just going to tell them the facts because I don't want them to be blindsided. I'd rather them hear it from me and get upset right now than to be blindsided later and be like, well, why didn't you tell me that? So that's kind of how I've approached it to make it easier psychologically for myself. But Millie, if you're watching this, I do understand what you mean, because it does get stressful. Just the other day, I can't divulge too much information on what's happened, but I can give you an idea, a generalization. The other day, I work for this giant company and we do risk assessments, and we have a client, and they're just going through some things, and we had to tell them an ugly truth about something on their system. And, honestly, it got ugly. And it was me and my coworker, and my coworker is super calm. Like, he doesn't get rattled at all. The crazier things get, the more calm he gets. He's amazing. Like, I learned so much from this guy. And I just realized we're just reporting facts. That's it. We have to report the facts. If we don't, I know they don't want to hear this, but we have to tell them, because if we don't, it's going to be way worse for them going forward. So that's the approach that I have whenever I'm working this job, reporting these inconvenient truths to them, and hopefully they understand it. Hopefully they take action, but it's up to them. Ultimately, and that's another thing. Don't take responsibility for their behavior. Like, it's up to them to make the right decision. It's not up to you. If you have reported the facts, free and clear of your own personal feelings, you have done your job. And then you want to put it in writing. You don't want to just tell them, because they might be like, well, you didn't say that, and maybe they forgot or didn't hear it or whatever. But if you send them an email, put it in writing, however you do it, then they have it. Then you have a record of you telling them what needs to happen. A lot of times with these giant hacks that happen, if you haven't noticed, like if you dissect some of these giant hacks that have occurred throughout our industry in IT, banking, whatever, hospitals, usually there was some lone cybersecurity person that warned them and said, listen, here's what I'm seeing. I'll give you an example. That stuff that happened in Texas. Texas had a deep freeze. Texas does, if you're not familiar with the U.S. or whatever, Texas doesn't normally get cold. Like, it goes cold, like very cold, like every maybe 10 years, 5 years, 6 years, something like that, right? This doesn't happen very often. Well, the climate has been very erratic in many states. And last month, they got hit with a winter storm. Like, a winter storm took out power they're blaming on the windmills and stuff, but it's like, no, windmills are only 12% of your energy. They're literal pipes for their main energy, which is coal and natural gas and oil, froze. That's how bad the freeze was. They weren't climatized. They didn't climatize the pipes. They didn't have disaster recovery. None of that. None of that stuff. And these are multi-billion-dollar organizations who we're talking, and they didn't climatize. They didn't do disaster recovery. Well, if you look back about 10 years, they had the same thing happen, and someone warned them. Someone warned them and said, hey, if this happens again, this could take the power out in 2 or 3 different counties. And that's exactly what happened. Somebody warned them. Your job as an information system security officer, your job as a cybersecurity person is to talk about those things to avoid the need for disaster recovery efforts, to avoid them getting hit with debilitating, catastrophic failures. That's what your job is. You're not there to sugarcoat things. You're not there to be nice and, oh God, come on guys. Now, you do want to be cordial. You do want to be respectful, but you have to tell them the facts, even if they're not going to like it. You're like a robot. Like, you're just reporting. Sometimes they want to kill the messenger and they get mad at you, but just realize, hey, they're going through some things. That's it. That's how I feel about it. That's how I've been able to get through this. And as a therapy session for ISOs, I would say just be the messenger. And that's it. Be the messenger. You're merely the pipe. The information is flowing through you. That's it. So, all right. And then Millie Tant says, let me show you guys what I'm seeing here. Goes on to say, this is another great topic, Millie, by the way. They say, where do you go next career-wise if you're tired of being an ISO and don't want to do security control assessor work? Good question. So I actually, a few years ago, I could speak to this one because this actually happened to me. I had been an ISO for many years. I don't know, like upwards of 10 years or something like that. And it just felt like all documentation and I was not getting hands-on experience. And so I felt I was just bored. I just kind of was doing the same thing and I just wanted something different. So I actually I talk about this in another video, but what I did was I started putting my resume in for other things, and I broadened my scope. I started opening myself up to different things, putting other things on my resume that weren't necessarily just risk management framework. And then I also put stuff on my resume that like things like my Linux experience background, my networking background. I start highlighting that, putting more of that stuff to the top of my resume rather than just kind of it buried or not even being on there at all. Then another thing I did, so I opened myself up to other career paths. Another thing I did was I opened myself to go to travel. This is a big one. If you're willing to travel and if you're willing to relocate, those two things, I'll put those two things in the same pot. If you're willing to do those two things right there, it will open you up to many different things. And if you're third thing is you got to be willing to learn. I was willing to do all those things because I wanted something different at that time in my career. I just wanted something different. I wanted to be more technical. And I got my wish. I put my resume out there, kind of updated it, put all the technical stuff on top, opened myself. Look, I'm willing to travel. I'm willing to relocate. I'm willing to do whatever, and willing to learn, right? I was mentally ready to learn. I didn't say on there willing to learn or anything like that. Put my resume out there. I started getting offers for all these things. Some of the things I couldn't do, like some of them was too technical. They're looking for an expert, like 3 years experience on SIEM technology or 4 years experience doing networking or whatever. I just knew I wasn't that deep into it. So I could learn it from where I left off, but I've been out of it for 2-3 years. And I'm like, well, I'm not really a high level network engineer. I could come in and learn it as a junior guy, but not, I'm not going to just dive in and know how to fix you guys' firewall, suddenly. So I just was very picky about what I was taking, what interviews I was willing to do. So I ended up getting this interview overseas, working for a government agency, doing a completely different job. They offered me a completely different job, like a cyber security analyst, which is basically the guys who data's coming through in and out of their network, and they're having to look at it and say, okay, is this an attack? Is this a denial of service attack? What's this data? So I had to look at logs live as they're going through the network. And and what that did was, when I got into that job, I was learning. Like I relocated, which wasn't easy, by the way, because I had kids, little kids. Relocated for some time, and then I was willing to learn. I was in a junior position, so they're literally training me. I mean, I had enough to like build on. I had enough knowledge to build on, but I'd never done that job before. I was in a SOC, which was a security operations center, where you're just looking at data all day long. And it was 12-hour shifts, which is not ideal, not fun. And it was in a skiff. Like it was several things. I was away from my family. I was in a windowless building, and it's 12-hour shift work. So that's 12-hour shifts. It was brutal. It paid pretty good, but it was a hard turn to make from being very comfortable and being able to just do stuff off the top of my head like I can do with risk management and with ISO work. It was stuff I had to learn. I was constantly learning, and I was a junior person. So if you're willing, Millie, if you're willing to take a risk, then yeah, you can do whatever job you want to do. It doesn't have to be in line with what we do. Like the reason why she brings up, or they bring up SCA, because from an ISO to an assessor is actually a very easy move. Very easy, because we do a lot of the stuff that they are watching. We're implementing the security controls. We're working directly with different departments within an organization to make sure the policies are in place, making sure the security controls are in place. Sometimes we're implementing the security controls. So to go to a security control assessor job is actually very, very easy for us, because you already see the inside. Now you're going to see it from the outside looking in, kind of thing. But if you are going into a different career field altogether, you got to be willing to take some risks. And for me, I did do it career-wise. I don't regret it. I did. Leaving my family was a little bit much, and that really hurt. That hurt me for years, by the way. So just you could do whatever. Just be willing to take some risks and to make some sacrifices is what I would say about that. All right, let me see. What other questions do I have? Corey says, stay safe, Bruce. Thank you so much. Let me see. Where is this place? Oh, somebody is asking me about this trip I did to, I think it was somewhere in Denver. Somewhere in Denver is where it was. I have just replaced the SSD drive. Okay, that's very technical about me fixing a fan in my old Toshiba laptop. Don't know how relevant that is anymore.